Hello everyone, I'm Agent Wyvern, and today I'm going to be giving you my first impressions of World of Warcraft Classic. Now this video isn't really going to be as heavily edited as my reviews, and it's just going to be my general sort of thoughts and feelings of the game from the first couple of days that I've played it. The first thing I had to do, of course, was create some characters. So I started off with a human paladin that I named Pelican, which back in 2008 was the first World of Warcraft character I ever made, and for some reason in my head it sounded like a good idea to mix the name Paladin with the name Anakin from Star Wars. Wasn't a particularly great plan, but I did it anyway, so I thought I'd do it again. I then decided to have fun creating a couple of more characters, and then a couple of more. Okay, I kind of enjoy making characters. But I decided to start my classic experience with my Warlock. And then I loaded into Northshire Abbey and I was hit by the nostalgia. The Elwyn Forest music, the wolves running around, the kobolds, the people doing quests. It was just like the way I remembered it. Now luckily I was on one of the lower population servers on launch day, and so I wasn't hit by the crazy queue times I know a lot of people were trying to get in and play. There was obviously some considerable competition for some mobs at times, but I imagine this is going to die down over the coming days and weeks. But anyway, how is Classic to play? How is it compared to the modern day retail version of World of Warcraft? Well actually, it's been really enjoyable, probably more so than what I was expecting. You see, I was predicting this to be sort of a mainly nostalgia trip for me, but many of the things that made it such a great game still hold up today, even against its more modern day counterpart. I think the first thing to say is that Classic WoW is a much slower and grindier game than many you see on the market today. But this means that many of the things you do earn or achieve within the game feel a lot more impactful and meaningful. I often felt that every silver and copper really mattered, because it often felt that I was on a tight budget and I had to make decisions about what to put that currency towards. Even every new weapon or armour piece felt a little bit more important than maybe it does in retail WoW, because every upgrade sort of felt few and far between and I wasn't showered with brand new sparkly items every 2 seconds. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing that modern retail WoW gives out maybe more items, it can be rewarding and feels like good to constantly get new armour and weapons and other things. But I think it just comes down to sort of two quite different design philosophies between what they did back in the day with the original World of Warcraft, which is now Classic, and what they do nowadays with the more recent expansions. For example, one of the core things in the Classic WoW experience is the almost forced interaction with other players. This is because you have to find your own groups for dungeons, for example, or even for just questing out in the world, because on average mobs tend to hit you a lot harder. I mean, I might have died more in the first couple of days playing Classic WoW than perhaps even the last couple of expansions playing Modern WoW. I'm now thoroughly acquainted with Sentinel Hill Graveyard, let me tell you. Retail, on the other hand, uses things like looking for group to sort of streamline the process of finding other players, and that often leads to very little interaction, at least in my experience. But I mean, I remember when looking for group was added back in Wrath of the Lich King, and at the time I was quite excited about it. I was like, oh yes, this is great, no more spending hours and hours waiting around trying to get a group together to do a dungeon. But at the same time, it then meant that a lot of chances for interaction were gone. I mean, yes, technically you could still, make your own groups and talk to people, but I think if you don't push players towards social interaction, it often won't occur at all. Again, neither Classic WoW or Modern WoW really has it wrong in this regard. It comes back to those two different design philosophies I mentioned, which will each appeal to different people. Personally, I found it just so much fun in Classic, just questing away and grouping up with just random people around and, talking and interacting and making friends. Admittedly, this might in part be due to the fact that it's, the first few days of Classic, there's a lot of people around in every zone, there's a lot of chances for this interaction to occur. But I still think that it's almost baked into the core game design of Classic, in a way that's almost gone rogue in retail WoW and has been replaced with a more, again, streamlined process. One thing newer players to Classic WoW might not expect is just how long it takes to do many of the things in the game. Leveling, for example, I mean, I've put in a fair few hours over the last few days and I'm not even level 20 yet. And you'll also be doing a lot of walking around since you don't even get your basic mount until level 40, and even then you've got to pay a pretty penny in gold to get it. And it's considerably more for the fastest speed mount at level 60. Of course you do have your Griffin flight paths, but they only take you to some set locations. There are also some things in Classic people don't remember quite as fondly, such as having to train your weapon skills for different weapon types, which is quite annoying if you get a weapon of a type you haven't used before, and you have to go and train the skill against lower level mobs, just so you can land hits on same level enemies. When it comes to playing my Warlock itself, it's been quite fun for the most part. And yes, I know there's not too much complexity to what spells you need to use in Classic and it's all very simple, but I kind of enjoyed going back to basics a bit. Now whether or not that enjoyment will last over the next 40 odd levels, I don't know, but so far so good. I mean, the other night I was just grinding against some mobs at Westfall, using the same sort of simple spell rotation, just under the stars and listening to the relaxing Westfall music, and I just felt really content, and it's a feeling I don't get too often in video games, but it was really nice. Now onto the questing. The quests in Classic are almost too straightforward, with them all really being a variation of kill this enemy, collect that, kill this enemy, gather that from over here. I've personally still found it enjoyable, but just don't expect a large variance in what you have to do. Obviously, another core tenet to the Classic WoW experience is being surrounded and killed by murlocs as they at you. But jokes aside, I just wanted to emphasise just how dangerous the world can feel to your character, as you've got to be so careful sometimes not to pull more than one mob, and you've got to sort of coordinate how you approach a situation. In my opinion, this really sort of makes you feel like an adventurer who's just going out to explore this scary world. So at the end of the day, is it just rose-tinted glasses? I mean, I don't think so. People with an attachment to the game will probably appreciate it more and be willing to overlook some of the game's flaws. But I think the game's aged quite well, and what made it good then still shines through today for any new players out there with a lot of time on their hands. Overall, for me personally, I've really enjoyed Classic so far, and I hope I continue to enjoy it as I play more. While it's certainly not as cleanly executed as modern WoW due to some of Classic's dated systems, its core design of social interaction and meaningful rewards shows why it dominated the MMORPG market. It's certainly been worth my time, and perhaps it might just be something worth yours too. If you have any thoughts on World of Warcraft Classic, please let me know down in the comments, and subscribe if you'd like to see more first impressions like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.